Listen, this is not an ordinary moment. This is not just another date on the calendar. August 6, 2025, a divine appointment, a heavenly summons, a day etched in eternity before the foundations of the earth were laid. God is sounding the alarm. The shofar is blowing in the spirit. He says, not some things, everything, your past, your pain, your position, your purpose, are all colliding with destiny on this very day. Do not sleep through this hour. The winds are shifting. The heavens are speaking. The clock of prophecy strikes again. You are standing at a threshold. Step in or stay stuck. But know this, God has already moved. Will you? The problem with humanity is that we are constantly trying to make God fit inside our clocks, our calendars, our expectations. But God does not submit to man-made schedules. He transcends time. He commands it, bends it, and redeems it for his purposes. And so while we worry about what hasn't happened yet, God is orchestrating everything behind the veil of the visible, setting things in motion far beyond what we can perceive. August 6, 2025 is not a coincidence. It is a prophetic convergence, a moment already written in heaven's records, and nothing about it is random. Your delay was not your denial, it was divine preservation. It was God's hand saying, not yet, because I'm preparing something greater than what you asked for. We tend to equate silence with absence and waiting with punishment, but in truth, the silence of God is often the sound of him working deeper roots beneath the surface. You think you've been forgotten, left behind, bypassed? But heaven says you've been positioned, protected, and primed for the fulfillment of a time such as this. And that's why this moment matters, is when God says, now, no devil in hell and no failure in your past can stop what he's about to do. When God moves, he doesn't ask for permission, he doesn't consult your circumstances, and he certainly doesn't need consensus from your critics. One moment in divine timing can accomplish what 10 years of striving never could. It's not about hustling harder, it's about aligning with the holy. It's about understanding that God's appointed time is more powerful than your best laid plans. Take a look at the life of Joseph, a man whose dreams were bigger than his circumstances. He had a vision from God, a promise of elevation and influence. But instead of immediate fulfillment, he was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned, and forgotten. For years, it seemed like the promise had died. From the outside, it looked like failure. But what appeared to be delay was actually divine design. Because in one single day, Joseph went from the prison to the palace, not because of a resume, not because of human effort, but because it was finally God's time. Pharaoh had a dream and Joseph had the interpretation. And the moment their paths collided, God's plan exploded into action. Had Joseph been released too early, he might have returned to obscurity. Had he gotten what he wanted when he wanted it, he would have settled for less. But the delay forged the character necessary for the crown. His pain was preparation for his platform. And so is yours. You may feel like you're in the prison right now, stuck, abandoned, wondering if the word God gave you is real. But the prison is often the classroom of destiny. It's the place where pride is stripped, where dependence is formed, where strength is built in silence. And when the time is right, not a moment too soon or too late, God will bring you out, not crawling, but crowned. Consider the modern day story of a woman who battled years of rejection, failed relationships, and the constant sting of not yet. Every door seemed to shut. Every effort fell short. She held onto her faith, barely hoping the word God whispered to her in her youth would one day come to pass. She thought she'd missed it. She was 40, single, overlooked in ministry and in life. But then, suddenly, a divine opportunity emerged, an unexpected call to speak at a small event that was live-streamed. That live stream was seen by someone who invited her to a national platform, and within 6 months, she was walking in rooms she'd never imagined, doors opening faster than she could walk through them. What changed? Not her gift, not her worth the time. That one moment shifted everything, not because she was lucky, but because heaven had decided now is the time. And what looked like wasted years were actually the years God used to prepare the message, the mantle, and the maturity she needed to sustain the call. You see, when it's not God's time, you can't force it. But when it is God's time, you can't stop it. This is why August 6, 2025 is sacred. Not because a man chose it, but because heaven ordained it. There are windows in the Spirit, holy intersections of timing and obedience. And those who are awake will step into unprecedented alignment. But those clinging to their own timelines, frustrated because life didn't unfold according to their spreadsheet, will miss it entirely. God is not late. He's waiting for the fullness of time. He waited to send Jesus until the fullness of time. He waited for Sarah's womb to be barren so that no man could take the credit. He waited until the Red Sea looked like a trap so he could show his glory. And he's waited for you, not to punish you, but to promote you at the right time so your elevation wouldn't destroy you. Some blessings are delayed out of mercy. Some doors are kept closed so you don't walk into warfare you're not ready for. And some silence is the sound of God rerouting your life to something bigger than you dared to imagine. But here's the truth you must cling to. God is never early, never late. He is always on time. And when his appointed time collides with your surrendered heart, nothing can stop the shift. That's what August 6 is about. A moment of acceleration, a spiritual launchpad, a divine crossing over. The appointed time is here. Will you still cling to your own deadlines, or will you trust the one who holds time in his hands? Will you believe that all the delays were actually disguised deliverances? That all the waiting was not wasted, but woven into a perfect plan? This is your moment to release the pressure of performance and step into the peace of prophetic timing. Because when heaven declares the set time has come, nothing, absolutely nothing, can stay the same. And that's what God is saying now. Everything changes. Not by your might, not by your power, but by his spirit and his time for his glory. And his time is now. They told you it would always be like this. That your pain would be permanent, that your story was sealed, that the ceiling you kept hitting was the final one. But God never writes in permanent ink what man declares over your life in fear or failure. There comes a moment when heaven breaks in, when the divine hand reaches down, and God declares, reset. This is not just about turning a page, it's about rewriting the entire script. August 6, 2025 is one of those days, a spiritual reset button, a day where the past loses its grip and the future is rewritten by the voice of the Almighty. When God resets, he doesn't merely adjust your path. He alters the very foundation beneath your feet. This is not about tweaks or tune-ups. It's about transformation. Heaven is not interested in fixing what was broken with duct tape and glue. God is in the business of making all things new, new identity, new purpose, new direction. But here's the tension. Many people cry for breakthrough, but few are ready for the reset that demands release. Because reset requires you to let go of the familiar, even if the familiar has been your prison. Sometimes the greatest enemy to your destiny is not the devil, it's your addiction to what's comfortable. The Israelites knew this well. They had prayed for deliverance, cried under Pharaoh's oppression, begged for freedom. And when God sent Moses, when the plagues came and the Red Sea parted, they walked out of slavery into a new future. But here's the tragedy, though they left Egypt, Egypt didn't leave them. God was ready to bring them into a promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey, a destiny prepared for generations. Yet when it came time to step in, they hesitated, they complained. They longed for the chains that once bound them. Because a reset may be miraculous, but it's also uncomfortable. It forces you to walk by faith and not by sight, to trust a cloud by day and fire by night, to depend daily on manna you didn't bake and water from rocks you didn't strike. The wilderness was not punishment, it was preparation. It was where God stripped away their slave mindset and reintroduced himself as Father, provider, deliverer, and guide. In our modern world, we often confuse consistency with security. We stay in broken relationships, toxic environments, and dead-end situations, not because we're fulfilled, but because we're familiar. We fear the unknown more than the unhealed. But when God initiates a reset, he doesn't ask your comfort zone for permission. He will shut down systems that no longer serve you. He will remove people who can't walk with you. He will close doors you begged him to open, because what's ahead demands a new version of you. There's a true story of a man who built a successful business over 25 years. It was his pride, his legacy, his identity. But due to an unexpected collapse in market, he lost it all within weeks. Bankruptcy, repossession, reputation shattered. Friends vanished. He was left with nothing but his breath and a Bible. And in that pit, he cried out to God, not for restoration, but for resurrection. He realized he had built something God never told him to build. It looked successful, but it wasn't surrendered. And in the ashes of loss, God whispered, "This is your reset." He started again, not with a business, but with a ministry. What came next was a global platform impacting millions. What was the difference? This time, it wasn't built on ambition, but obedience. The first structure was built by man. The second was born from surrender. The loss wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the life he was always meant to live. And that's what God is saying now. This is not your ending. This is your genesis. The reset has come not to destroy you, but to deliver you from what you would have never walked away from on your own. The job that didn't work out, the relationship that fell apart, the opportunity that slipped through your fingers. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God's mercy disguised as disappointment. He's too committed to your calling to let you settle for less. But the reset also comes with a call. Will you let go of what was to embrace what could be? Will you release the trauma, the labels, the limitations, the lies? Will you trust God enough to step into a future you cannot yet see? Because a reset is not passive. It demands participation. It means burning the bridges to yesterday's mindset and walking boldly toward a tomorrow that hasn't yet manifested. And yes, it will be scary. Yes, it will require tears, trust, and tenacity. But on the other side of your obedience is a life you couldn't imagine, a version of yourself you've never met, and a testimony that will shake nations. What if the very thing you thought disqualified you is the same thing God will use to qualify you? What if the thing that broke you is the same thing that birthed the oil inside of you? What if the rejection was actually your red carpet into purpose? God is not just repositioning your feet. He's recalibrating your heart. He's removing your idols, softening your pride, awakening your spirit. You thought you were losing everything, but in truth, you're gaining what matters most, Him. And when He is at the center, everything changes. The reset is not about elevating your platform. It's about establishing His presence in every part of your life. That's why this moment, this August 6th, is sacred. It's not just a calendar date. It's a divine threshold, a line in the sand, a holy reset that heaven is initiating. The question isn't whether God will move. He already has. The real question is, will you move with Him? Will you surrender the old blueprint? The familiar patterns, the expectations rooted in fear. Will you trade your plan for His purpose? Because what comes next will not look like what came before. And thank God for that. Because this time, it's not going to be built on striving. It's going to be built on surrender. This time, the foundation will not be shaken because it will be laid by the hand of the master builder Himself. So step into the reset. Embrace the unknown. Release the past. Because when God presses reset, everything broken becomes whole. Everything lost is found, and everything old gives way to the new. The reset isn't coming. It's already begun. There are moments in history when prophecy is no longer a distant echo, but a thunderous knock at the door of the present. A moment when the scroll of heaven is no longer sealed, when what was hidden begins to unravel in plain sight, and the words once whispered in mystery now shout through the fabric of time. August 6, 2025 is one such moment, a day when prophecy stops being theory and starts becoming reality. This is not about mystical riddles or vague predictions. It's about the fulfillment of divine patterns, the intersection of God's word and your world. We are not living in ordinary times, and what you see around you, the shakings, the alignments, the exposure of darkness, the rise of voices crying out in the wilderness, is not random. It is prophecy unfolding in real time. To ignore it is to sleep through a divine visitation. To acknowledge it is to rise, prepare, and align. There's a reason your spirit has been restless. There's a reason you feel the shift in the atmosphere, the stirring in your soul. It's because heaven is no longer speaking in riddles, it's roaring with revelation. The trumpet is not merely sounding, it's blasting, calling you out of comfort into clarity, out of delay into destiny. And in moments like this, everything accelerates. What once took years happens in days. What once seemed impossible suddenly manifests with divine force. Prophetic fulfillment always brings divine urgency. Consider the life of Daniel, exiled in Babylon, yet uncompromised in spirit. He wasn't just a dream interpreter. He was a man immersed in prophecy. One day, while reading the scroll of Jeremiah, Daniel saw that the 70 years of desolation for Jerusalem were nearing their end. That revelation didn't lead him to complacency, it drove him to intercession. He didn't say, "Oh, good God's about to do something." No, he fasted, prayed, repented on behalf of a nation. Why? Because prophecy doesn't produce passivity, it demands participation. Daniel understood that when a prophetic word begins to align with current events, you don't wait for it to happen. You step into the fulfillment of it with urgency and reverence. The angel Gabriel was dispatched, visions unfolded, kingdoms were revealed, and timelines were set, not for entertainment, but for action. In the same way, we are now in the days of revealed prophecy, where the curtain is being pulled back, not just globally, but personally. What has been declared in the secret place is about to manifest in your everyday life. That dream God gave you a decade ago. That word that felt too big for your reality. It wasn't imagination. It was invitation. And August 6 is the threshold where what was spoken begins to be seen. This is the season when the word becomes flesh in your circumstance, when the invisible becomes undeniable. There's a powerful true story of a young man who, as a teenager, received a prophetic word from an old preacher in a tiny church. You will speak to nations. You will walk through governments. You will carry revival where others fear to go. He wrote it down, but life didn't line up. He was homeless at 22, battling addiction, forgotten even by family. For years, the word seemed like fantasy. But one day, sitting on a park bench, dirty and angry, he heard the Holy Spirit whisper, "My word never returns void." That same day, he walked into a church food pantry just looking for a meal. A stranger looked him in the eyes and said, "God hasn't forgotten you. The word is still alive." Something snapped. He dropped to his knees and wept. Within weeks, doors opened. He entered rehab, then seminary. By age 35, he had preached in 40 nations, stood before presidents, and led thousands to Christ. He didn't make it happen. The word chased him down. Because when a word comes from heaven, it cannot die in the soil of obedience. It may lie dormant, but it is never dead. And for many reading this, the prophecy over your life has not expired. It's just been waiting for its appointed time. And now the time has come. But with revelation comes responsibility. When prophecy begins to manifest, so does resistance. Hell knows what time it is even when we don't. The warfare increases not because you're failing, but because you're close. The pressure builds not because you're off track, but because you're standing at the gates of promise. The enemy doesn't attack where there's no threat. He attacks where there's a word. That's why it's been so hard lately. That's why the spiritual fatigue, the confusion, the delay, the battles in your mind. Because you're not just walking through a season, you're walking through prophecy. And prophecy is not a straight road. It is forged in fire, watered with tears, and tested by time. But once it reaches maturity, nothing can stop it. Not Pharaoh, not Babylon, not the tomb, not the storm. The prophetic word is a living seed, and when God breathes on it, it breaks every natural law. Time bends. Doors open. Chains fall. Heaven invades. The question now is not whether prophecy is real, it's whether you're awake to it. The signs are everywhere. The stirring is undeniable. You don't need a new word. You need to believe the one God already gave you. Go back to your journals. Revisit the dreams. Dust off the declarations. Ask the Holy Spirit to quicken what's been buried beneath disappointment. Because what's coming isn't new. It's the fulfillment of what's been promised. And God is not a man that he should lie. What he spoke, he will bring to pass. But it will require your alignment, your obedience, your yes. You can't enter prophetic fulfillment carrying old habits, old bitterness, old excuses. The word may be for you, but it won't move without you. You must step in, speak it, sow it, walk it out. This is not the time for casual Christianity. This is the hour for bold faith, focused hearts, and holy fire. This is the time to prepare like Noah, worship like David, prophecy like Elijah, and intercede like Esther. Because we are not waiting for prophecy to be fulfilled, we are living inside it. August 6, 2025 is not the end of something. It is the divine intersection where the spoken word meets visible reality. Where what was once whispered in prayer begins to thunder in manifestation. Where personal prophecy meets global shift. And when God starts fulfilling, he doesn't do it halfway. He finishes what he starts. So don't be afraid of the shaking. Don't retreat from the stretching. These are just the birth pains of the promise. The word is becoming flesh. The scroll is unrolling. The season of manifestation has arrived. Will you be ready when it knocks on your door? Because whether or not you feel qualified, the prophecy has not forgotten you. Heaven is moving, and everything God promised is closer than you think. There is a reason the enemy has tried so hard to convince you that your life doesn't matter, that your voice has no weight, that your story has no significance. It's because you are part of a divine strategy, a living piece of prophecy planted in this generation, not by chance, but by intentional design. The battles you faced weren't just random trials. They were targeted assaults meant to shut you down before you discovered your true assignment. But the very fact that you're still breathing, still standing, still seeking, is the evidence that hell failed and heaven's plan is still in motion. The enemy fears your awakening because he knows that once you realize who you are and why you were placed on this earth at this time, you will shake nations, tear down strongholds, and leave a legacy that echoes in eternity. You were not born in this hour by accident. God chose this generation, this season, this moment, and he placed you in it. You are not a mistake. You are a weapon. You are a vessel of glory. You are part of heaven's offensive move against darkness, a kingdom assignment wrapped in human skin, sent not just to survive, but to advance the mission of God in the earth. This is not about being famous. This is not about platform or position. This is about purpose, the kind that reaches into eternity and aligns with the very heartbeat of God. And you were written into the strategy. Think of Esther, a young Jewish girl, orphaned and exiled, plucked from obscurity and placed in a pagan palace. To the world, she was just another pretty face in a harem. But in the halls of heaven, she was a divine agent sent to stand in the gap between annihilation and salvation for her people. She didn't know the fullness of her assignment when she put on the crown. She didn't see the threat until it reached her doorstep. But when the moment came, when the enemy's plan to wipe out her people was exposed, Esther had to choose remain silent and safe or risk everything to fulfill the role God had written for her before time began. Her uncle Mordecai's words still thunder through the ages. Who knows if perhaps you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? And those words aren't just for her. They are for you. You have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Your gifts, your pain, your story, your scars, they are all part of the divine assignment. You don't need to understand every detail of it. You simply need to say yes. Because the moment you say yes to God's plan, you become dangerous to darkness. The enemy doesn't tremble at titles. He trembles at obedience. And obedience is the gate through which destiny flows. Consider the true story of a quiet, overlooked janitor at a small inner city school. He never preached, never stood behind a pulpit, never wrote a book. But every morning before the sun rose, he would walk the hallways of that school and pray, laying hands on lockers, speaking life over broken children, interceding for teachers and families. No one saw him, most dismissed him, but heaven recorded every prayer. Years later, revival broke out in that school. Students started weeping under the presence of God during class. Teachers found themselves praying together during lunch. The entire atmosphere shifted. When asked what started it, the students pointed to that janitor, the quiet man who had been praying for years. He wasn't famous, but he was faithful. He wasn't celebrated, but he was strategic. He was part of the divine plan. And so are you. Your value is not measured by how loud your voice is in the world, but by how surrendered your life is to the voice of heaven. You may feel invisible to people, but you are fully seen by God, and every act of obedience, even in secret, is woven into the fulfillment of something far greater than you could ever comprehend. There is no such thing as a small role in the kingdom. There is no one God creates without a purpose. And in this hour of acceleration, on this threshold of prophetic shift, God is awakening his hidden ones, his Esthers, his Daniels, his unnamed intercessors, his marketplace warriors, his creatives, his builders, his servants. You are not just here to go to church. You are here to be the church, alive and burning with holy fire, carrying the presence of God into places pulpits will never reach. You are part of God's answer to the chaos in the culture, to the confusion in the generation, to the compromise in the systems of man. That is why the pressure has been intense. That is why the warfare has increased. That is why the pruning has been painful. Because God is refining a remnant who won't bow, who won't break, and who won't buy into the narrative of fear and apathy. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to stand out. You were designed to disturb darkness, to speak truth in love, to carry light into every room you enter. Your family needs your obedience. Your city needs your obedience. The next generation needs your obedience. You are part of a divine strategy, and every second you hesitate is a second the enemy tries to steal from the timeline of purpose. But here's the good news: God wastes nothing. He redeems time. He restores what's been stolen. And even if you've run, doubted, or disqualified yourself, he hasn't changed his mind about you. The assignment still stands. The strategy still includes you. All heaven is waiting for is your surrender. And the beauty of God's strategy is that it does not require perfection, only participation. Moses stuttered. David sinned. Peter denied. Paul persecuted. And yet every one of them became a pillar of the divine plan, not because they were flawless, but because they yielded. And you can too, today. Now, on this very day, August 6, 2025, a day marked in heaven's calendar, a day not just for change, but for commissioning. This is not just a moment to receive, it's a moment to step in, to rise up, to declare, "Here I am, Lord, send me." Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs anointed voices. It needs you. Not your imitation of someone else, but your authentic, spirit-filled, battle-tested, surrendered self, walking boldly in the divine strategy written with your name on it. Don't underestimate who you are. Don't downplay your role. The heavens are watching. The cloud of witnesses is cheering. The King is calling. You are part of something eternal. And the time to step in is now. There comes a moment when God calls you to step into the unknown, to leave behind the safety of the familiar, and walk into waters where your feet cannot touch the ground. And that moment is terrifying, exhilarating, and holy all at once. This is that moment. August 6, 2025 is not just a date. It is a divine invitation to move beyond the borders of your comfort and into the territory of trust, to trade fear for faith and stagnation for supernatural movement. When God says, step out, he's not looking for your confidence, your certainty, or your strategy. He's looking for your obedience. The ones who move mountains are not the ones with the most experience, but the ones with the most surrender. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the refusal to be paralyzed by it. Like Peter stepping out of the boat onto the stormy sea. You may not understand how it will work. You may be surrounded by waves of uncertainty. But if Jesus is calling, then the water will hold. Peter's mistake wasn't that he stepped out. It was that he took his eyes off the one who called him. And so many of us are just like Peter. We want to walk in the miraculous, but we keep waiting for the storm to settle before we step. But what if the miracle doesn't come when the winds die down? What if it comes when you move in the middle of the storm? That's the kind of faith God is awakening now. Not safe faith, not pelagical faith, but raw, gritty, fearless edge of your seat faith that believes God even when the math doesn't work and the map doesn't make sense. That's what this moment requires, a bold, blind yes. And yet, even as God calls us forward, we must understand that the door to the next season isn't open forever. There are divine windows, brief, sacred moments in time where heaven invites you to step in, but if you hesitate too long, that window closes. Just like the 5 foolish virgins in Jesus' parable, who had the lamp but no oil, many have the outward appearance of readiness but no inner preparation. When the bridegroom came, the door was shut, and they missed their moment not because they were bad, but because they were late. Timing matters in the kingdom. Obedience must be immediate. Delayed obedience is often disobedience in disguise. And this window, August 6, 2025, is one of those moments. A threshold, a divine deadline. An invitation with an expiration. You've been circling the mountain long enough. You've been praying for change while clinging to the things God told you to let go of. But now, the Spirit says, decide. Will you move with me, or will you stay here and miss what could have been? That's not to produce fear, it's to stir urgency. Because the cost of disobedience isn't just personal, it's generational. What you decide today will ripple into your children, your legacy, your eternity. And the beauty of God's mercy is that He warns us before He moves. He sends the word before He opens the window. And now the word has come. The trumpet is sounding. The door is open, but you must walk through it. And when you do, don't be surprised by how quickly things change. Because this is the season of suddenlies. The kind of season where what's been stuck for years shifts in a single moment. Where prayers you've whispered in secret manifest in broad daylight. Where people who have written you off see you rise without explanation. Because God doesn't need time to prepare a blessing. He only needs a surrendered heart. Look at Joseph. Years of waiting, betrayal, false accusations in prison. But in one day, one moment of divine alignment, he went from prisoner to prince. That's how quickly God moves when His time intersects with your faith. That's how suddenly your story can shift when heaven declares it. There's a reason you felt the shaking lately. There's a reason things around you have felt unstable. It's because God is rearranging everything, getting you in position for a sudden shift. He's not cruel. He's strategic. And He's about to do in days what would have taken decades. Your job is not to figure out how. Your job is to be ready when the moment comes. That means staying faithful, staying prayed up, staying available. Because in this season, God is releasing acceleration, and those who are aligned will experience open doors, divine connections, favor, and breakthroughs that defy logic. But in order to step into this, there's something you must do. Burn the bridges behind you. You cannot enter the promised land with the baggage of Egypt. You cannot walk into destiny carrying the weight of your old mindsets, the hidden sin, the toxic relationships, the fear-based thinking. It all must go. Because God cannot bless who you pretend to be. He can only anoint the real raw, surrendered you. There's a moment in Scripture when Elisha was called to follow Elijah. What did he do? He burned his plows and slaughtered his oxen. He destroyed the very tools that tied him to his old life. That's what God is calling you to do now. Burn the backup plan. Delete the number. Walk away from what's pulling you back. You cannot afford to have one foot in Egypt and one foot in the promised land. You must choose. The reason some people never step into the new is because they leave an option open to return to the old. But today, God is drawing a line. This is your exodus. This is your Elisha moment. Burn the plow. Let it go. Move forward. Because what's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you, but only if you leave the past where it belongs. And here's the mystery of it all. Heaven is waiting for your yes. God has already moved. The angels have already been dispatched. The provision is already on the way. The promise has already been spoken. But nothing will happen until you say yes. Heaven does not force obedience. It honors surrender. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be willing. Willing to step, willing to trust, willing to believe again. And when you say yes, when you align your life with God's purpose, everything changes, doors open, chains break. Miracles begin. Because your yes is not small in the eyes of heaven. Your yes releases kingdom strategies, angels on assignment, and divine momentum that carries you into places you never dreamed possible. And perhaps the greatest truth of all is this: revival starts with you. It's not coming from a pulpit or a platform. It's coming from surrendered hearts set ablaze by the fire of God. You are the spark. You are the temple. You are the carrier of glory, and when your heart is fully His, revival cannot be contained. It overflows into your family, your city, your generation. You don't need a stage to bring revival. You need a surrendered life. You don't need a microphone to change the world. You need a yielded heart. You are the move of God. So wake up, warrior. Rise up, remnant. The time is now. The window is open. The call is clear. Everything changes, but only if you do. Haven is moving. Will you move with it? This is not business as usual. This is not a normal season. This is a divine call to step out of the boat, to shake off the grave clothes, to walk in resurrection power. August 6, 2025 is holy ground. Everything changes if you will. The heavens are open. The trumpet is sounding. The scroll is being unrolled. Will you miss the moment or move with God? Because when God says, EVRYTAG, you better believe EVRTIG will.